Hey, 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 hey. We will be up live in about 30 seconds. All right, all right. Let me hear you, Reverend Dr. Yeri.
Morning, one, two, three, four,
Okay.
five, four, three, two, one.
Dr. Latrice, let me hear you.
Good morning.
Okay. Representative Reynolds, let me hear you.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, all right. We're up now in two. Hey, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving week. This is Santita Jackson on the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, welcoming all of my people from all over the country and all over the world. It's always a joy to be with you. Such an honor to be with you today. And in this week, where we're going to be getting together, indeed, we're supposed to have record travel. And the good news is this Thanksgiving meal is supposed to cost far less than it did last year. I guess the question is, can you still afford it? That's the problem that most Americans are having, and it is really not funny. So I'm wishing everyone a wonderful holiday. And hello, everyone here. Not only do I wish you a wonderful holiday, one of the things that people are talking about is whether we're going to be able to get along in the holidays. So many people have such profound feelings about this election that the question has been, will people be able to get along? And just as a side note, I hope that you do. Really, it's such a blessing to be with the people that you love and the people who love you. Uh, just put your differences aside or just hug it out at the end. Because people have their own 24 hours, their own 24/7, 365. People believe and feel what they feel. And you need to respect that wherever people fall. But really put the love above everything else, because that really is a blessing. Think about the people who were here with us last year who are not with us this year. There is no guarantee that the people who, someone who's to your left or to your right, in front of you or behind you, will be with you next year. Think about that, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, and may you have that spirit every single day. I'm Santita Jackson. This is the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Please meet my morning stars. Hey, Andre, you're up first, but other people are there. Hey, everybody, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and like and subscribe and share the show. Share the show. And go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. I'm getting invitations for friendship every day, but I need you to go to Santita Jackson and Friends, please. The other page, I can't accept any friends. Santita Jackson and Friends on Facebook. That's where you can reach me. And on X, at Santita J, at Santita J. So let's get right to it. Today, we're going to be talking about the International Criminal Court in the second hour. They have called for the arrest, or the arrest, shall I say, of Minister Gallant in Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu and one of the leaders of Hamas. What do you think of that? What does that mean? Means that they can be arrested in most countries around the world. Will that be enforced? Some countries said, yeah. Many in the global south said, you set foot on our territory, on our country soil, you will be arrested. Wow. But what does that mean for business? What does it mean? And it was an African country that has led the charge, that is newly emergent on the international scene as a global power. Remember, everybody, the next century it has already been determined that the 22nd century will be the century of the African. A lot of things are changing awfully fast. But right now, we're looking at the things that are changing in this country very, very, very quickly. Wow. Many of us are still trying to make sense of the election because people, for so various and sundry reasons, were very invested in the election. And we have been in the election. We've been vested in our politics and in really how we're doing and how we're feeling. A lot of people are not feeling well. Can't afford groceries. You certainly can't afford to get sick. It's just a lot going on. There's a lot going on. And people can't make it from payday to Monday, as they say. One of my dear friends, Lynn Richardson, wrote a book, Payday to Monday. She talked about that, making it from payday to Monday. So many people can't do that. They can't. So let's think about that. Hey, Monique, Happy Monday to you, Andre. Happy Monday. Everybody get on over here, please, and like and share. And please, if you can, go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and engage in conversation there. So let's get to it. Let's talk about this mandate. Something interesting happened last week. We thought when you hear mandate, you think that President Trump or anyone won by this commanding margin. That's not true. Indeed, last week he slipped below 50%. So he's leading by 49 point, I think 8%, 49 plus percent. And Kamala Harris is at 48%, just above it. It's one of the thinnest margins in history, but we do not mean to say that he did not win, because he did. And when you step back and look at the map, he won, even if it's by a small margin, in more places all around the country. He won in more places than she did. There's something to be said for that. Howard Dean had what he called the 50-state strategy, something that Democrats have been ignoring for years and years and years and years. Will they still continue to ignore that? Because remember, he did win a sweeping mandate in the Electoral College. And that was very clear early on in the evening of November 5th. And that is how you actually get in. But it helps us to understand the importance of state politics. Because in some states, remember, some states it's a winner-take-all system. You can win 49.9% of the vote, you get no electoral college votes. In other states, it's not like that. It is proportional. It's congressional district by congressional district. Either way, it comes down to the states. It's something that you need to understand. And we need to talk about it and what we're going to do about this electoral college system, not in an election year. We need to talk about that right now. But let's talk about this mandate. And what does it mean that the corporate media continue to push the sweeping victory that President Trump got that he really did not get? He did win, but he did not win by what is many people say, according to the Cook Political Report, which first reported that the president-elected gone below 50%. He said, it's more than 10%. And it is more than 10%, but that's not what's happened here. Technically, a mandate can also mean that, okay, you won. Therefore, you have been mandated to carry out certain policies. But the way that this story is being pushed in the corporate media is that the votes were overwhelming, but they weren't. But the votes were there. That much is true. So how do we make it? And as we had David Daley, the author of Anti-Democratic, the New York Times bestseller, Rat Effed, The True Story of the Secret Plan to Steal Our Democracy. We've been gerrymandered out of power. Progressives and Democrats were woefully underrepresented in the U.S. Senate, in the U.S. House of Representatives, and in our state legislatures. We have been mandated out of power, if you will, because the districts have been drawn in a way that we have been disempowered. That is real too. So let's talk about this with this wonderful panel, community psychologist, make noise for change, Dr. LaShawn Latrice. Of course, attorney Daryl Jones, chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, host of his own show on WOL. I know you and Barbara Arnwine will be talking about this tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Or shall I say today at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time every Tuesday. Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Esquire, Rainbow Push, senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore, Maryland. But I'm going to start with you, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. Of course, you are head of the Black Legislative Caucus in Texas, which has the greatest number of Black people in the United States of America. So I guess, that's really central to American politics. And what's interesting about Texas is that it is also a rainbow state. So as you have a powerful Black vote there, you also have Black people who have to form, and brown people who have to form, and white people who have to form coalitions. And you see a lot of that there, right? So talk to me. What about this mandate? I mean, when we, as an elected official, what is a mandate? What does it is it subjective? Is it is it objective? Is it depending upon what you feel? I don't know because I'm trying to figure it out right now.
Uh, uh, well, first of all, good morning. It's great to be on with so many amazing people that I have the utmost respect for as I look here, and happy Thanksgiving in advance.
Yeah.
So, when you think about a mandate, you think about someone who has a very strong support from their constituents and the people that they represent. So, if I had a mandate, that means that the overwhelming majority of the people that can vote for me, they voted for me. They sent me in office with such momentum, with such a statement that I go in representing the values of the vast majority of the citizens in my community, right? That means that I have a mandate. And when I go into office, it is known that I carry with me the pulse of the people in my district, or if you represent a state, in your state. And so I would say that a mandate means that you come in with a certain amount of, to use layman's term, street cred. The people believe in your vision. They believe in the policies that you stand for because that's what you campaign for. And that's what they overwhelmingly supported you for. So the difference would be if I had an opponent and I barely won. I won with a slight plurality or a slight majority. So if I needed 50% and I met that 50.01, right? That's what I would
Mhm.
need to win. I don't have a mandate. I have a slight majority. I barely beat my opponent. That means that almost as half the people didn't want to vote for me as voted for me, right? And so that's the opposite of a mandate, where you have someone who basically ran neck and neck with you. It could have been a coin toss. It was very razor thin. They couldn't call the election on election night. That means that I have what's called a win. I got the W, but that means that I have a lot of work to do to convince a number of people that I'm the best person for them, because clearly almost most of them voted for someone else. A mandate means you come in with strength and you have a certain amount of gravitas that comes with that. Uh, a win's a win. You get a vote. You get a chance to pick your people, and you have your name on the door. But when you have a mandate, it is clear and convincing, and people tend, especially when it comes to the presidency of the United States of America, people tend to respect it more, and you can kind of push your agenda more because you have that goodwill that people say, well, yeah, he did have a mandate. We saw that with Obama in his first term. We saw that with Ronald Reagan. We saw that with Bush in his second term. And so a mandate means that you come in with such strength that the people know that you have the pulse and the will of the people. The opposite of that is what we have here with Trump. And after they tallied the votes, where you won. And then I want to say that outright. He won legitimately based on the electoral college, pretty strong, and the popular vote barely, but he won. But he did not win with a mandate that we thought he had on election night. When I saw the returns on election night, the margins that he was up by, the percentage that he was up by, I said he had a mandate. I was one of those people that said, yes, Trump has a mandate. I was shocked. I was astonished, but I had to respect the fact that he had the mandate based on the clear and convincing percentage that he's up by. But as the elections results have come in, and more recently, we see that it's much, much, much closer. 49 point some change versus
Mhm.
48 point some change. So basically a less than 2 point difference. That is not a mandate. That is a decisive victory, but that is not a mandate. So I think that Trump The media, unfortunately, has not corrected that narrative, that false narrative that was out there, because to me, they have a hidden agenda to perpetuate this fraud that he has this mandate. And I think that it is a shame that the mainstream media is not doing what you're doing, Santita, is having the conversation to reset and to inform the American people, because most American people don't know. They don't know. They don't read the Cook Political Report. They're not looking at the Nation magazine. They're not really tuned in and plugged in. So as far as they know, Trump has a mandate. So I think it's important that we educate the masses so that people can be informed, engaged, and empowered.
Mm. Everybody, I want you to weigh in. Let us know what you think. Hey, Robert, shalom to you, Mike, and Jewel up there in New York. Louis Russell, how you doing? Or is it Louis Russell? I want to get it right. And Bernadette and Laura and Monique and Andre and so many of you who are tuning in. What do you think about what we saw on election night and what we're seeing right now? Because it seems to me, Attorney Darrell Jones, that they're conflating this mandate. They're putting the Electoral College victory ahead of the people and that vote. I think that corporate media, legacy media, and no wonder they are losing viewers and listeners in droves, because they're not, I don't trust what they're doing. They're not even giving me up to date analysis. Do you know how hard I have had to search to get the numbers, on the election after November 5th, after November 6th? Mm-hmm. It's been extremely difficult for me to find the numbers. And so when we're talking about, and then they don't even explain what a mandate is. They barely mentioned that President Trump had fallen below 50%. And it's important because this is the story, everybody. It's a story. And it also, as we're listening to people, Attorney Jones, really try to push the party to the right. That is to say, Kamala Harris lost because of woke votes. No, if you listen to Black people, she lost for a whole lot of other reasons. It was trust. It was her prosecutorial record, which I had wanted her to get in front of and talk about. There were a lot of things that were out here that she got bad advice on. But even with that, even with being dealt this awful hand, she turned a negative campaign into a competitive campaign. And that's why she's telling her advisors, keep my political options open, because even as they take polls now, she's the front runner. It's rather early, but for 2028, she's the front runner. At least at this point in time, it's a snapshot in time. So what do you make of this mandate that everyone's talking about, that the mandate that really is not? And I want you all to stay tuned, because in the second hour, we're going to be talking about the ICC issuing an arrest warrant, or should I say arrest warrants, for Prime Minister Netanyahu, his minister, Gallant, and a Hamas leader. That means that he can be arrested in most countries of the world. The countries that have signatories to the ICC, they can put him in cuffs. What does that mean? But right now, what does this mean? Attorney Darrell Jones, I'm just trying to find the numbers. It's just so hard.
Yeah, well, yeah. Good morning, Santita, and again, just always great to be on with this panel. So well informed and provocative in thought, as well as deliberative in thought. I wish that our major newscasts were as deliberative as this panel, because if they were, they wouldn't want to be so quick to rush to put out information with regards to the numbers from the election. One of the things that we continually push and have continually pushed is that you've got to wait till the votes are counted before you start doing a deep analysis of an election. What the problem is here is that there's a push to be first, to get the information out from the major networks. And so in their push to put the information out first and be out there first, they start losing the accuracy of what they're saying, which messes up the analysis that their commentators provide. So in this situation, one of the analysis that was being thrown out all election night and following was that there was this overwhelming mandate that former President Trump is running so well, he's doing all of this, he's won the popular vote by such a grand margin. There's all this prediction, without waiting for the numbers and the votes to be counted. Yeah, I'm an old country boy. You count your votes after they're cast. And that's what the newscasters and the commentators need to do, is wait until the votes are counted after they've been cast to start these deep analysis. So when you put all of that into play, what then ends up happening is where we are now, where we have many Americans that are running around here talking about, well, my candidate had an overwhelming mandate because I heard it on all the news stations. I heard it on Fox. I heard it on MSNBC. I heard it
You
on
heard
CNN,
on,
whatever
don't
your
start with
news.
Fox. You heard it on CNN because they continue to
CNN,
repeat
right.
MSNBC and Fox and ABC and CBS and NBC and PBS and all of legacy media are doing this, which lets
Right.
you know. I mean, I want you to continue, Daryl. This is not partisan. This is power.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because
Right.
the oligarchs do not want us to move politics in a populist direction. So they tell the populace, they tell the people that we've lost. And you lost overwhelmingly. I mean, that's what's so offensive to me.
Mm-hmm. And what that sets the stage for, in addition to that, it's not simply offensive, but it sets the stage for the argument that all the misogyny, all the racism, it sets the stage for saying the young people didn't do this, that these voters didn't come out.
Mm-hmm.
It sets the stage for saying, well, the polls were not right. And this is how all of this now happened. Now, as the numbers actually are counted and it's coming in, it seems as though the polls were pretty close. They were saying between 1% and 2%. The polls then now are starting to look like they were pretty close with regards to the popular vote on this thing. But the other impact that this has, now, particularly on people that want to participate in the democracy process, they're thinking that my vote didn't count. It didn't make that much of a difference because she got blown out, and that's not factually what has happened. And so it can have the impact of a chilling effect on voters that then say, I want to go to the poll because this is the candidate I supported, and I thought it was much closer than it was. When in fact it was that close when it came to the popular vote. And I say this, Santita, one of the things, and I give Vice President Harris so much credit, because she did a little over 100 days. She took, what I call a funeral procession and turned it into a big party in terms of believing that there's a possibility now for us to win this election. But not only did she do it just from what was there and all the problems she inherited, the Gaza she inherited, all those questions that she inherited internationally, she also did it in a questionable and a weak economy. She did it in the situation where, most folks didn't believe that she was going to be able to do it. They didn't think she could turn it around. And even when she was tapped by Vice President Biden to be the candidate, there were people saying, I don't think that she's the one. I don't think that she can do it. And she did it despite the fact that there were state legislatures across this country that made it more difficult for voters of color and young people to be able to vote, that made it more difficult for seniors to be able to vote. She did it regardless of all that, and regardless of all the gerrymandering that we saw that has gone on across the country. She still did it. And that, it is, I think, an incredible testament to the viability of her candidacy. And it goes against what many of the ultra conservatives were saying, which was that the woke, those that were woke died from this, that it was all the trans stuff that died from this, and, immigration that died from it. It goes against all of that. It goes against all of that for it to be as close as it was in this election, Santita.
You know what? I think that people went past even their personal feelings about a lot of issues, because a lot of people feel a lot of ways about a lot of things. That having been said, they said, okay, I'm going to vote this away. But according to the Cook Political Report, because they're still the entity that I have to go to, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, Attorney Daryl Jones, Reverend Dr. Todd Deary, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, I still have to go there to get these numbers. 77 million votes were won by Donald Trump. 74.5 million votes were won by Vice President Harris. The Electoral College, 226, he earned 312. Now, even as they're counting votes still in California and in several states around the country, they don't expect the Electoral College to move. But it's important for us to understand that she got 48.48% of the vote. He got 49.86% of the vote. He won. I get it. But to act as if I mean, and he won, even though there were a lot of people who did vote. Like we can see where the third party and where the alternate parties did make a difference in this, because quite frankly, in her position, you still have to be superior in order to be equal. Closer than this is not enough for her candidacy. She would have to win convincingly the way Obama did. I mean, that's just the way it, and if she runs again, that's the way it's going to have to happen. Whoever runs, when you're running against really an incumbent, Reverend Dr. Uri, because that is what President-elect Trump is. He basically is an incumbent. We haven't seen anything like this, and this has only happened like 2 times in our history as a nation, where a president lost and then came back. That doesn't happen often. It happens rarely. So, what do you make of this mandate that people are saying that President Trump has? He did win, and I think it's important. Thank you for being so responsible, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, because you preface everything you say, and I appreciate that. Before I pivot to you, Reverend Dr. Uri, Esquire, why do you preface everything? You're very careful to say, wait a minute, let us establish he did win. Why do you do that, Texas State Representative Ron?
Because I've heard some nonsense about out there for two reasons, Santita. One is because the first and foremost, because of the BS that he did last time, where he claimed he lost because of massive voter fraud that caused a lot of chaos and confusion. I mean, he lost a legitimate election to Joe Biden. Point is simple. He couldn't accept the defeat, so he put out this false narrative. I didn't want to create that same type of nonsense. I mean, he won a legitimate election. And there were some who, even I was talking to someone yesterday, said, well, with Elon Musk and with Russia, they probably messed with the machines and there's no way she lost that election. I said, no, don't, no, we're not going to do that. He won.
Russiagate was
Okay,
debunked.
he won.
Stop it. He's not a Russian operative.
Yeah, no, he won. Period. And I this was an intelligent person that told me this. Like, I've had a few people. So y'all need to stop what you listen to on TikTok or wherever you're getting this stuff off the internet. He won. It's over with. I think there's going to be an invest. No. Let's move on. It's over with. So I wanted to be clear and concise to say that yes, he won overwhelmingly, legitimately, but it wasn't no mandate. So that's why I was doing that, because there are some people who can't accept defeat and they come up with excuses to legitimize their position of, oh, well, it had to be something wrong. No. I mean, people win and lose every day. We have to accept the results, and that is a part of our democracy. So that's why I said what I said, Santita. I didn't want to. There's too many trolls and false narratives out there on the internet, and I don't think there's any conspiracy that Elon Musk, although he's in tech and he's the richest man, that he was able to manipulate the votes across this country to secure a victory for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is, it is what it is, and look, vote theft, all of that. I mean, that's like taking as an article of faith about the 1960 election, that you had to come and until Richard Daley died in Chicago, you had to come through Chicago, wink, nod in order to win. So, I mean, look, we're from Chicago, Dr. Latrice. We're clear on that. I mean, because Richard Daley has this city on lock still. The vote in Chicago is controlled by the block. You still have precinct captains, do we not, Dr. LaShawn Latrice? I mean, Chicago ain't nothing like it. Block by block, they turn out the vote. That's how Richard Daley was able to deliver those wink nod 100,000 votes to Kennedy in 1960. It's just come on, Daryl, y'all, come on. It's real. It is what it is. So, and now, I mean, that was before we had computers, for real. So, Reverend Dr. Uri, this mandate, what do you make of it? Hey, Roni Morning Coffee. You all come up with these names. I love it. Reverend Dr. Uri.
Good morning to you and my colleagues. Couple of things going through my mind as I'm listening to my brother Ron Reynolds, who is actually engaged in the work of political resistance by way of the legislature. Uh, Certainly Daryl Jones, who does the street work and then gets in the courtroom and battles it out. And then, of course, Dr. Latrice, as a community psychologist, she has to evaluate the sources, the causes, and the responses to what casually is often called insanity. Um, it's important that this conversation is going on because here's where we are. If we think about it, I'm not trying to make anybody uncomfortable, but if we put ourselves in Trump's place, how would you message it? You're going to message it that when you've got 312 electoral college votes, which is more than the current incumbent to whom you lost by an unfair election, you're going to spin it. And the reason you have to spin it is that if you don't have divided government, however tight the margins are, if you've got the trifecta of the House, the Senate, and the White House, you've got to lean in as much as you can for the first 2 years, for the as much of the term of the upcoming Congress as possible. And if you don't message to really your base, who also kind of benefited but were impacted, right? They lost some seats. The margin is tighter in the House. You then lose the ability to hold your team intact so that you can kind of push the agenda. While the conversation has been by way of certain media outlets that they're not picking up these things, let's not forget that the week leading up to election day, both the Washington Post and the LA Times decided they were not going to make any kind of endorsement in terms of who they were standing with, in terms of who was running for president. There's something to be said when Truth Social and X come together to be able to model and reach a different audience. Because if we look at the political demographic shifts, ain't nobody trying to be watching CNN and MSNBC. We like it, right? We like to see the engagement. But for the emerging political class, which is actually going to be the younger generation, they are on TikTok. They are on social media platforms. And so, whatever the argument is of the boomers and the busters, maybe a few tweeners around who's going to sit around on cable TV, these kids ain't even buying cable. They got sticks and stuff hanging out of their TV tied to USBs. And so, I think there is an awareness that he's not really talking to the masses of people. The election is over. The margins are going to be what they are. And so he's got to figure out, how does he galvanize momentum? Because right in front of our eyes, he is putting together that is clearly, by far, arguably, the most unqualified list of potential cabinet holders that we have ever seen. And while there's a lot of caricature about DEI hires and this notion of folks who are being unqualified, because he's going after this so-called deep state, he has put together this montage of folks that you're trying to figure out where these folks come from and what are they going to do. When you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's going to chair the subcommittee on government efficiency, to go after the structure of the civil service, which in many of our communities was actually the mechanism by which many of our folks found it to have jobs that could lead to the middle class. That's kind of the issue that we've got. I got to give me 2 hot seconds because my little guy is getting ready to go to school. He's coming to
Well,
tell
now,
his daddy bye, so
that's
I
right.
can.
Now, you better go on
He's
and
going out. Have a good day. All right, so.
right.
I had to take care of little daddy business
So, thank
real
you.
quick. So,
You got some
but
points with me. How about that part?
hey, I get points. I take them wherever I can get them. So, I got to, it's Monday. I got to build a spread. I win by 1 point if I have to, not because I choose to. So,
That's great.
but when we're looking at this, we got to remember the mandate is not really to appeal to the folks that didn't vote for him. He's really talking to his base that now has some expectations that whatever the rhetoric may have been, they're expecting to see mass deportations. They're expecting to see government be shrunk. They're expecting to see that education is going to be returned to the states. They're expecting to see that government is going to be shrunk. Now, they're not thinking about how is that ultimately going to affect them. That's why we need a community psychologist, because we deal with the rhetoric, we don't deal with the results.
But
When the
hold on.
results,
Stay, no, stay
Mhm.
right there. If you don't mind me interrupting you here,
Go right
because
ahead.
it's not just what he's messaging. Because I expect, Trump is going, President-elect Trump, and I want to respond to him or refer to him respectfully because that is what I want people to do for everybody. I'm seeing the corporate media not check this. I mean, they're not saying, hey, let us define what a mandate is, Reverend Dr. Erie. Um, Mandates typically are 10 points or more. That is historically what it has meant. That is not what we have here. And they're conflating, or should I say, they've just pivoted away from the popular vote to the Electoral College. There is a sweeping mandate in the Electoral College, yeah, but not with the popular vote. And I'm watching the it's not just not legacy media. These are the oligarchs. They control the media. Elon Musk owns one of the major sources of media, X. That's what these people do. And the media serves the oligarchs. They don't serve us. They don't service us. And more people see it. That's why they're turning them off. CNN had 13.3 million people viewing on election night in 2020. They barely got over 800,000, everybody, in 2024. People have turned off. They have tuned out, and they've gone to TikTok. And we're talking with each other. And they're like, you know what? I've seen this before. Because as I listen to man on the street interviews, that independent media that people just putting a mic in your face and they're going on social media, listening to people's analysis, Reverend Dr. Erie, which as a pastor, and of course, giving your activity with Rainbow Push and NAACP, and just because you are out here organizing with people are coming up with their own analyses because of what particularly Black folks, because of what we've experienced. We've been gamed since we've been here. So we look at folks and go, really? You cannot be serious. I'm not going to listen to this. I'm getting
Yeah.
you to listen, Dr. Latrice, because I just heard some analysis of this. Because now I comb YouTube and X and Truth Social and Blue Sky. I look at it all because I'm trying to find out where people are. That's what I'm trying. I think that's my responsibility. I'm agnostic about that. I'm like, I want to know, what do you think? What you
Yeah.
think? And Newport said, I've been MIA for a long time, and you can finish your remarks, but you can respond to this. And I'm glad you're back at Newport 348. You've been MIA for a long time, only to come back and see us splitting hairs, 51%, 49%. We are better than this. The reason we're not splitting hairs, we're trying to tell the truth. Because the mandate, as I have been told, is something other than what we're seeing. I don't think that we're being told the truth, Newport. That's what is bothering me. And I see a lot of people, those people who did vote, Reverend Dr. Erie, they're not just turned off, they are dispirited. I have seen more people depressed about these election results, and trying to help them to come up out of that is very, very difficult. Because for various and sundry reasons, people were very vested in these results. And some people, I have seen people actually over the past couple of weeks go into depressions. And we think that we were beaten. We were not beaten, we simply lost. And if we do a real autopsy, a real analysis, we can say, these are the things that we should have done. These are the things that went well. These are things that didn't go well. If we do that, you can win the next race. But we're even unwilling to do that.
Yeah, you can win the next race, but the assignment now is to mitigate the harm that is coming before the next race. Part of this is trying to figure out, how do we not get so overwhelmed by the challenges and the difficulties and the disappointment from this election. Still, the Democratic Party still doing soul searching at the national level. You now see that there are candidates who are vying, and neither of the most prominent names that I've heard are necessarily all that appealing. One is the former governor of my state, from whom I, had a an appointment to one of the state commissions. But one of the challenges he had is he was an advocate for broken windows policing when he was mayor of the city of Baltimore. Locked up more Black and brown people during the tenure of his administration than we had seen in cities probably more than 2 or 3 times its size. We've got to figure out, because there's now this psychology of meaning. We're looking at the popular vote, but the presidential election is not a popular vote. It's 50 popular votes that lead to the election of electors who then pick the president. And if we don't do a better job of playing Monopoly, first thing you got to do if you're going to play Monopoly to win is you got to read the rules. I think we got to understand what the rules are and what the rules require of us to make sure that we are leaning in and certainly putting pressure on our elected officials, whatever the makeup of the House and the Senate are going to be. We've got to make sure that we start looking now. The midterm map for the Senate does not look all that promising for significant pickups for the Democratic Party based on which states are actually in line. You've got to protect John Ossoff's seat in Georgia, which is going to be a very difficult challenge. And you got to figure out who's going to make a viable run at Tom Tillis in North Carolina. And you're not sure if Roy Cooper is going to be that candidate or if you got somebody else. We've got to figure out what's going to be the strategy. The analysis is going to be what the analysis is. But when I met with some of my young people at the church yesterday, I asked them, we were talking about the election and the campaign. And I said, well, where do you get your information from? And they said TikTok. And so I would want to say, adding to this conversation about what legacy media may not be reporting, to your point, Santita, we got to figure out what social media is doing. And I'll leave it right here.
Wait a minute, because that is what Trump did in 2016.
And what he did to build on it is he put his hold on, because we can't miss this point. He got his own social media company. Everybody laughed at him. And then he partnered with the guy who came and bought Twitter. We cannot miss the fact it wasn't about Elon Musk's money. It was about Elon Musk's reach through X. And now the president has unfettered access to reach more people, multiples more people than any of the legacy networks can get on any show. You could take a week of their shows, and they could not accumulate the number of people that can be reached in a tweet. We don't even call it a tweet anymore. I don't even know what it is since Twitter became X. But that's the reality. And so if we don't come to, first thing we got to deal with grief. Grieving requires getting a grip on reality, overcoming the shock, so we can begin the process of not only healing, but restructuring what our reality looks like so that we can continue to live. So I'm going to leave that.
No. And I'm not interrupting you to cut you off. It was just an amplifying point, because
no, I'm good.
I don't want people to miss these pieces, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, because that's how I was putting my finger on the pulse of the people, by looking at TikTok. Because what they did was they poured a lot of money into influencers in the Black community. They didn't have 100 million followers. Nobody does. That's a lie. You got to look at people who have a good 10, 20, 30,000 people, 500 solid people who are behind you. That's something. That's why you go to churches, Reverend Dr. Yeary. Someone who can pull in a few hundred people or a few thousand people every week. Huh? Oh, no, that's big. That's big. And he did that. And he did that in 2016, and he did it in 2024. He's a businessman. My brother Jonathan, when he came down that escalator in 2015, I honestly wrote him off. I said, this is a joke. He said, no, he's going to win. This was 2015. I said, now, my brother got an MBA. Congressman Jackson got an MBA from Northwestern, from Kellogg. Okay, I get it. That's not my background. I don't do marketing. He said, you must understand he is a marketer. He understands, Dr. Latrice, people. That's how he stayed relevant all these years. He's done this. He understands folks, and he knows how to reach them. He's pivoting off of one of the biggest TV shows in the United States. And he's doing this. Don't write him off, Santita. First of all, honey, Given what we've seen, you never write anybody off. I said, boom, pardon me. And I watched him take out candidate by candidate. We all did. It became must see TV for everybody. I had never seen anything like it in my life. Boom. Dr. Latrice, this mandate, and what are you hearing from people? And Chaperone says Democrats don't have a candidate for presidency to run. And Robert said, yep, okay.
I think that, good morning, everyone. I think that what we're seeing right now is kind of a replay of what has been taking place for a very long time. First of all, the people that I talk to, a lot of the people who have boots on the ground, we never rely on mainstream media. We rely on what we call movement media. And those are those people who you see, the independent reporters that are out there every day risking it, trying to get stories, and they're telling the stories from the voices of the people. That's what we rely on. I haven't tuned into CNN, C-SPAN, none of that, just for my regular updates. I mean, you
So
always
that's off. That's just
home.
off the.
Nobody is watching those channels at all when it comes to things like this. But I will say this: mainstream media has always shaped the narrative of the oligarchs. We can just go back just 3 decades and we can see everything that they wanted people to know or believe has been pushed unilaterally from the mainstream media, which always makes me pivot and look the other way, because that tells me that there is something else going on that they do not want you to know. And so when you think about the Electoral College, I have always asked this question, and I guess I can ask State Rep Ron Reynolds. I can't understand why people are not challenging the Electoral College to be dismantled, because think about it. They have always dismissed the popular vote. No matter what has happened, you have a group of people going, I'm not going out to vote. If I go vote, the only thing they'll do is overturn it with the Electoral College, because people are paying attention. And even if you watch what's happening now, how we know it looks a certain way, those people know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing by steering certain conversations. It was all by design. But what they don't realize is, and what we need to pay attention to, everything that's taking place post-presidential election is now shaping how people will vote in the future. So the way that people are perceiving, they're putting out numbers that are not true. They don't want you to know the election was as close as it was. I saw so many reports flashing across just channel 7, 5, 2. When the election was taking place, you would have thought there was no reason to even pay attention, because the election was already taken over and won anyway. But what I will say is, those who are in the political position to represent us as constituents, I wish that we could form some sort of alliance where we could start addressing what is taking place with the Electoral College. And I think we would boost the morale of those people who feel like they are no longer a part of the electoral process. It is too traumatic for people. Even when you all say you're hearing people depressed. I talk to so many people who can't believe the outcome of the election, but this is my question to them. What did you think was going to happen if Kamala won? Would you have gone back home and went to sleep? Or would you have still engaged yourself? That's the real question. We can't afford to take one entity, one individual, and put it in the position of ruling the rest of the country for the rest of our lives, and it takes us under. How could we do that? I mean, even with the God that we serve, how could we do that? So I'm telling people, from my perspective, I feel like nothing happens without God's permission. So even though we're looking post-election, we still have to understand this is all part of the plan.
Okay. Look, I only have a few more minutes left. I'm going to have to give everybody a minute here, but you're giving us a lot to think about, because I can tell you, Attorney Daryl Jones, and of course, by the time people hear this broadcast, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time today on WOL out of DC. WOL, listen to his radio show. He and Reverend Doctor. She's an attorney, but she really does have a ministerial zeal, seriously, about protecting our vote. Because whether it's a popular thing to do or not, You and Barbara Arnwine are on the front lines of protecting our votes and really giving us safe passage to the vote. We thank you for your work. But, with this mandate and with all of this and coming up, we're talking about the ICC now. Most countries across the globe can arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. What do you think about that? Uh, excuse me, Representative Reverend Doctor, okay, Attorney Daryl Jones. What's your closing thought?
So, my closing thought really comes from Dr. Latrice. And when she was lifting up people becoming discouraged from this election cycle, we cannot become discouraged. One of the articles that I recently read talked about Black women now saying, we did our job trying to protect democracy. We're going to stand down now, so you can see what it is that you've elected. We're not at a point, I don't believe, that we can do that. I think that we're at a point where we have to dig in deeper. I'm an old baseball guy, as Reverend Yeri knows. If you swing and you miss, and you swing and you miss, you dig in deeper and you swing a little harder and you concentrate a little more until you can hit it out of the park. That's what we've got to do right now, is that we've got to take whatever lessons we learned, whatever we learned about social media and its impact, we need to implement it so that we're pushing forward with registration, we're pushing forward with voter turnout, we're pushing forward, we're pushing for people that represent the community, and ultimately, Dr. Latrice, Representative Reynolds, and Reverend Yuri, ultimately, we've got to be certain we take on this electoral college and its issue and get that corrected so that we really come closer to being a democracy and having the popular will of the people be the guiding force of our country.
Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds.
Well, I think that this conversation has been very fruitful. I've been long in support of abolishing the electoral college and going to a popular vote, because what you do in essence is you empower the entire country, as opposed to the certain swing states are the ones that would make up, because it's winner take all essentially, and those are the states that tend to get all of the attention. It would really be a 50 state strategy where everyone's vote really did count. And so I've been in favor of that. And my research shows that most Americans are in favor of that. So it's going to take some political will for us to make that happen. And certainly we have to continue to be engaged. The last thing that we can do is Santita is to give up, to throw in the towel. I know there's a lot of anxiety across this country based on the results, particularly in the African American community, particularly with Black women. Black women were let down, but the country overwhelmingly, minorities were let down. But the last thing I want to say is I'm glad I recently saw something that says we need to apologize to Black men. Black men were not the reason that Kamala lost. That part needs to be said. I'm proud of my brothers who only second to our sisters, and I'll be second to sisters any day because they're number one. But I want to just say that yes, we need to speak truth to power and really pull the onion back and talk about these white women that didn't vote for Kamala. We need to talk about these other groups that overwhelmingly shifted. That's for another day, but don't come for my brothers when it comes to why we lost this election.
Well, go lecture them. How about that part? Ask them why they voted the way they voted. Don't come to Black people anymore. Don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. That's insulting to me. It was insulting then. It was insulting years ago. And it's more insulting now. Dr. LaShawn Latrice, I got a little under a minute for you.
Thank you. I was just going to say in conclusion, we just have to pay attention to the voices of the people. If we become more united and less divided, we can get a lot more accomplished. And I think the unrealistic aspect of people believing that there is one party against another, if we diminish all of that thought or those thought processes, we can tell then what's really going on. Numbers don't lie, people do. So people will say they're going to vote a certain way because they know no one can really track them. Mm-hmm. But when it's all said and done, when Black men were attacked, they were attacked by some of the people from the Democratic Party. So let's not forget that, and let's just call it what it is. At the end of the day, I knew that that was just a narrative being pushed and it was not real. But now we see now with the actual poll numbers what happened. So let's just remember, numbers don't lie, people do.
And there's some making up that they need to do. They need to apologize to black men. How about that part?
Absolutely.
Black men deserve an apology.
That's right.
They deserve an apology.
From President
Yeah.
from President Obama. Let's start there.
Yeah, how about that part? But he needs to apologize for a lot of that because he has a habit of doing that. And I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's insulting. It's insulting. We continue to deliver. And as black men and black women are insulted all the time, we're the canaries in the mine, Reverend Dr. Yuri. And you come to me. No. You know you need to go talk to white men, but you're not going to do that because you're not going to lecture them. You're not going to lecture white women. You're not going to lecture Hispanic men. You're going to come and wag your finger in my face. And black folks let them all know this time that's enough. Reverend Dr. Yuri, less than a minute.
Real quick, we could spend several days talking about the psychology of oppression and domination. It is a systematized, structured, intentional way to not only hold communities back, but then to blame them for the structure of their own harm. So let's just be real clear. But when Dr. King wrote the letter from Birmingham jail, he presented this question. He said, "My colleagues keep asking, why am I in Birmingham?" And his response was really this: well, why are you not in Birmingham? We got to figure out where the folks who need to be in the fight so they can get in the fight. Reverend Jackson would often tell us, don't get discouraged, get determined, because this is what's required in the moment. I will encourage everybody to find your version of a Representative Ron Reynolds, wherever you are in your state. Get the version of his level of commitment and passion and fight on behalf of the least of these at the city council level, in the state legislature, and when we get ready for 2026. But what we cannot allow ourselves to do is to get so overwhelmed by the shock of the initial phase of grief. This is where preachers always find a way to get a sermon. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy indeed comes in the morning. But that doesn't mean you go to sleep. It means you go to work.
Absolutely. Get to work, everybody. I understand. Tend to your wounds, but you're not wounded. You're just upset. We're going to move forward. We're going to move forward. We're closer than we've ever been. And you got to move forward right now. Push now for what it is that you want in this administration. Yeah, you might have to fight them, but it's still your administration. Yeah, you might not like it. You might not have voted for them, but there are still deliverables that you need from the government, and you need to get them. And we have to learn how to argue with someone within administration that we did not vote for. That's politics. You have to serve with them all the time, Representative Reynolds. People you did not vote for, people with whom you disagree. You have to figure out a way to work with them. That's what we have to do. Come on now. That is the maturation of our politics. We're strong enough, big enough, we're mature enough to do it. Let's get to work. Let's talk about the ICC. Whew. Do you think about it? In most countries across the world, Benjamin Netanyahu can be arrested. What do you think about that? More of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Hop on over to the second hour, everybody. Much love and happy Thanksgiving. Yeah. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota.